You did what? My voice cracked as I stared at Carol from across the kitchen table. My stomach twisted into knots. I couldn't believe what she just said. She didn't even flinch. Her fingers, perfectly manicured, tapped calmly against her coffee mug like she hadn't just crushed my future. I used it for the wedding, she said with a shrug, like we were talking about spare change. Luke needed help with the cost. It's family money, you'll get over it. Family money? I repeated, my voice rising. That was my money. I worked 2 years waiting tables to save for college. Carol, you told me you'd invest it for me. And I did, she said sharply. I invested it in something important, your brother's wedding. Her son, not my brother. Luke didn't even act like he cared about what Carol had done. His fancy wedding, with the expensive venue and flowers that probably cost more than an entire semester of tuition, meant more to them than my future ever did. I could feel my blood boiling. Before I could say anything else, my dad walked into the kitchen, holding a cup of coffee. What's going on in here? He asked, looking between us, confused. Ask Carol, I said, pointing at her. She spent my college savings on Luke's wedding. My name is Emma Williams. I'm 19 years old. My mom passed away when I was 10, and a few years later, my dad remarried. That's when Carol came into our lives. I wanted to believe things would get better, that we could be a real family again. But from the start, Carol made it clear I didn't matter to her. Her only priority was Luke, always Luke. I became invisible, only noticed when it was convenient, but that didn't stop me from trying to build a future for myself. I got a job at a diner when I turned 17, worked every shift I could, and put away every dollar I earned. I had a plan. I wanted to go to college and become a nurse. It was my dream, and my mom's dream for me too. Carol used to talk a lot about how smart people invest their money, so when she offered to invest my savings, I believed her. I trusted her. She was supposed to help. But she didn't. My dad looked confused, scratching his head as Carol walked right past him like the conversation was over. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I didn't know until now, I said, barely able to hold back my tears. She promised she'd invest the money, but she spent it all, on Luke's wedding. He looked stunned, but I could already see him backing away. He hated confrontation. He always had, and Carol knew that. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, he said quietly. I'll talk to her. A misunderstanding? I snapped. She admitted it. She doesn't even think she did anything wrong. But he had no answer. He just muttered something about being late for work and walked upstairs, leaving me alone with my broken trust and shattered plans. Carol had stolen my future, and my dad wasn't going to do anything about it. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, something changed inside me. The sadness, the betrayal, it all turned into something else. Determination. If no one else was going to fight for me, I'd fight for myself. The next morning, I went to the library and found a flyer for a local lawyer. I dialed the number and told him everything. I need to know if there's anything I can do, I said. It's my money. I earned it. Can I get it back? Maybe, he said carefully, if you can prove it was yours and that it was taken without your permission. You have a case, but it won't be easy. Are you ready to go to court? My hands were shaking, but I said yes. When I told my dad about the lawsuit, he looked like I had stabbed him in the heart. Emma, do you really want to do this? He asked, pacing back and forth. This will cause so much tension in the family. There already is tension, I said. She stole from me. This isn't just family drama, it's theft. He didn't respond. Then Carol walked in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. So, what's the plan, Emma? She said. You're going to drag us all to court over a few $1,000s? That's real mature. I looked her straight in the eyes. It's not just money, it's my future, and you don't get to take that away from me. She smirked. Do what you have to do, you won't win. In that moment, I knew, this wasn't just about money anymore, it was about standing up to someone who had walked all over me for years. With my lawyer's help, I started collecting everything I could, bank statements, pay stubs, even the note I wrote Carol when I handed her the money. It wasn't a contract, but it showed my trust. My lawyer, Mr. Peterson, said it was a good start. He planned to request Carol's financial records too. If she used the money for the wedding, there'd be a trail. At home, things got worse. My dad barely spoke to me. Carol made passive-aggressive comments every chance she got. She'd leave sticky notes on the fridge saying things like, Maybe save up again, third time's the charm. But I refused to let her get to me. I stayed focused. I leaned on my best friend Lily, who kept reminding me that I wasn't crazy, that I was doing the right thing. And then something unexpected happened. When Mr. Peterson got Carol's financial records, we found something big. She hadn't just used my money for the wedding, she'd been secretly taking money from a joint account with my dad for years. Fancy clothes, weekend trips, jewelry, things my dad had no idea about. This isn't just about you anymore, Mr. Peterson said. This shows a pattern. It could help your case. But it also meant my dad would finally see who Carol really was. I don't know if I can do that to him, I told Lily. She looked at me and said, he needs to see the truth. Maybe this is the wake-up call he's been avoiding. The morning of the trial, I sat in the courtroom, heart pounding. Carol sat across from me, perfectly dressed, like nothing could touch her. My dad sat next to her, not even looking my way. The judge came in, and the trial began. I took a deep breath and reminded myself, this isn't just about money. It's about my voice. It's about my future. It's about standing up for me. Mr. Peterson, my lawyer, stood up and faced the judge. His voice was calm but firm as he spoke. Your Honor, he began, the defendant, Mrs. Williams, used my client's hard-earned savings without her permission. She didn't think twice about how it would affect Emma's future. She put her own interests, mainly her son's wedding, above her stepdaughter's well-being. That's not just unfair, that's betrayal. Carol's lawyer tried to fight back. He claimed that I had given the money to Carol willingly, that it was a gift, not savings, but Mr. Peterson stayed calm. He handed the judge a thick folder of bank records, all gathered through subpoenas. The room went quiet as the judge flipped through the papers. Each page showed the truth. Carol had taken money from my father's accounts, used some for Luke's wedding, and spent the rest on herself. Expensive handbags, spa visits, designer clothes, weekend getaways. I looked over at my father. He looked stunned, like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. His face turned pale, and he leaned back in his chair, staring blankly at the documents being read out loud. For the first time since we'd started this whole mess, Carol's face changed. Her confidence was gone. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her fingers clutched the edge of the table, and she stared at the judge like a student who'd been caught cheating. Then the judge turned to me. Miss Williams, do you have anything you'd like to say? I stood up, my knees shaking a little, but I took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, Your Honor, I said. That money wasn't just a number in my bank account. It was my dream. I waited tables after school, on weekends, through the holidays, just to save for college. My mother wanted me to become a nurse. Carol promised to invest the money and help me grow it. I believed her, but instead, she took it, for flowers, and tablecloths, and a wedding I wasn't even invited to help plan. I paused for a second, swallowing the lump in my throat. This isn't just about $8,000, it's about trust, and I just want justice. I sat back down. My heart was racing, but I felt proud. I'd said what I needed to say. The judge leaned forward, her fingers pressed together as she looked at Carol. Mrs. Williams, she said, the evidence speaks for itself. You used Emma's money without asking her. You claimed it was for the family, but the financial records show a different story, one of selfish spending and mismanagement. Carol's lawyer tried to jump in again, saying this was a family matter and shouldn't be handled like a criminal case, but the judge held up her hand to silence him. This is not about family drama, the judge said. This is about right and wrong. Carol tried to speak then. Her voice was quieter than usual, and she sounded like she was trying to hold on to whatever dignity she had left. Your Honor, she said, I only used the money because I thought it would help the family. Luke's wedding was a big event, and The judge interrupted her, her voice sharp. And you think using a teenager's college savings without permission is justified? And what about the other withdrawals, luxury items, personal expenses, spa treatments, all while telling Emma her money was being invested? Carol stumbled over her words. I didn't mean for it to turn into this. Enough, the judge said firmly. This isn't just about poor judgment, it's a serious breach of trust, and it's clear you've done this more than once. I looked at my dad again. He hadn't said a single word during the whole hearing. Now he had his head in his hands. He looked broken. I could see the truth finally sinking in. Then the judge announced her decision. In light of the evidence, I rule in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Williams, she said clearly. Mrs. Williams is ordered to repay the $8,000 in full, plus interest, within 60 days. I also recommend a formal review of Mrs. Williams' financial activities due to the concerning pattern shown in these records. The courtroom went silent for a moment. It was like everyone was letting out a breath they'd been holding. Carol's face turned cold. She didn't say anything, just clenched her jaw tightly. My father didn't look at me. I think part of him was still trying to understand how he missed all of it. But I sat there in that courtroom feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace, not just because I won, but because I stood up for myself and was finally heard. As I gathered my things and walked out, Carol brushed past me, her eyes burning with anger. She leaned in and hissed under her breath, "You'll regret this, Emma." I stopped and turned to her, meeting her eyes without flinching. "No," I said, my voice calm and sure, "you'll regret underestimating me." And I walked away, out of that courthouse, and out of the shadow she had tried to keep me in for years. I didn't just win in court, I won my voice back. And that was something she could never take from me again.